Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this episode of Armchair Astrology. In this week's episode, we'll be exploring the Jupiter retrograde cycle, what it means for you, how to work with it to your best possible advantage. For those of you who are new to this channel, my name is Ryver. I'm the intersectional astrologer and Reiki master of Psyche and Soul Astrology. It's my personal mission to help you remain grounded and empowered while you accelerate your growth. And to do that, each week I create an Armchair Astrology episode or a moon video to help you explore the upcoming astrology transits. I always leave you with a tangible takeaway at the end of each video, so you'll want to stick around and check that out. That's my way of helping you to work practically with the energy presented week after week so that you can stay on top of your personal mission. So with that being said, let's jump right in. Pop up the chart and we'll talk a little bit about a few of the things that I notice and what that means for the next about 4 months, as Jupiter's retrograde cycle will be active from about April 9th or 10th all the way through August 9th or 10th, depending on where you are in the world. So the first thing that I notice with this chart and with every chart is what's going on with the rising sign. As Jupiter begins to go retrograde, we have Capricorn rising in the sky, and this means that we'll have a bit more of a sort of somber tone to at least the start of the Jupiter retrograde cycle. With Capricorn on the rise, Saturn actually rules this chart, and we'll see that there are quite a few other things that pull Saturn's energy, and the ongoing Pluto, South Node, Saturn conjunction into the overall dynamic for this Jupiter retrograde cycle. The other thing that I want to bring our attention to and that I'll talk about in this video is the fact that Jupiter will be squared by Mercury, who is still in their shadow zone. And so I'll talk a little bit about kind of the passing of the retrograde baton and how we can use this Jupiter retrograde cycle to really carry forward and work with the things and themes that came up during Mercury's retrograde. And I'll throw up some cards and some links in the description for other videos that outline some of the energy going on astrologically for the month of April. So with that, I'll drop the chart away and I'll give you kind of just my overall themes. There are two things that struck me immediately as I looked at this chart. One is that what felt possible due to kind of our really high hopes or inflated sense of optimism might now feel nearly impossible now that we are presented with and faced with some real difficulty in carrying forward those missions and those goals. And the other thing is that an inflated sense of optimism is often the very thing that we need to really tackle things that are difficult, that take a long time to move through, take a long time to master. And those are very Saturnian things: length of time, mastery of a certain thing, difficulty. And so with this Jupiter retrograde cycle, I'm seeing it as an overall positive. We're finally taking off the blinders, we're finally kind of putting down the rose-colored glasses and taking an honest look at what we've gotten ourselves into over the course of the months previous. Now, for a lot of folks, I think that's really going to show up as an opportunity to see from a higher vantage point which things got missed during the Mercury retrograde cycle, and to also see from that higher vantage point where we can go if we can keep up with that determined step-by-step diligence that Saturn really loves, especially while Saturn is in the sign of Capricorn. There was one last chart thing I forgot to mention, and that is the square between the Sun and Aries and all of those Capricorn planets, whilst the Sun is having quite a harmonious trine relationship with Jupiter. So pull the chart back down and let's talk a little bit about what that means. So in brief, a square presents friction, and I think of it like the friction that you need to strike a flint to start a fire. It's often a really good thing, but it's a little bit difficult. If you've ever tried to start a fire with friction, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Whether you use the drill and bow method, whether you're literally trying to strike a flint to get a spark going, it's a difficult process, and it takes quite a bit of technical skill. But if you're cold enough, you've got the motivation to keep at it until you hit that desired result of starting a fire. And a square can function very much like that astrologically. It gives us the motivation that we actually need to take action. A trine, on the other hand, is harmonious. It's flowing. If you think about, anybody who's got some like technical music know-how or music theory knowledge knows that thirds are generally really good. That's how we make those chords that most people really love and enjoy. There are other relationships like the fourth that doesn't work quite so well, or at least not in isolation. So if we kind of take these little metaphors and analogies here, overall, what I'm seeing is that the sun that illuminates things, right, our conscious awareness of what's going on, is really facilitating that Jupiter, really helping to energize the slowdown of Jupiter, the stationing of Jupiter, which is expansive. It's higher knowledge, it's philosophy. It does have a lot to do with hopes and dreams as well. And in the sign of Sagittarius, it has a lot to do with our pursuit of truth. And so if you find yourself out there and what you've been engaged in the last month, you've been working those tangible takeaways, the challenges, the questions, really working to see what is it that I can learn from the situation around me, from the conditions that I've manifested or found myself in, then this is a time where you're really being invited to slow down and step back so that you can get as much perspective as possible and really see which details you need to go over again, which steps you rushed past in excitement to get to the end of the journey, and slow down and actually enjoy the journey itself. Now, a few other notes that I wrote here. There's a really difficult dance between acknowledging our actual resources and distinguishing them from the ones that we dream or wish or imagine that we have. And I think that's going to be the biggest theme for anybody who's looking to materialize something, whether that's art, whether that's a creative project of some sort, a business project of some sort, a relationship. It's one thing to understand what resources you need to achieve the goal, and it's quite another thing to actually have those resources in your possession, in your control, and have the authority to decide how those resources are distributed, to what projects those are distributed. And keep in mind that things like rest, rejuvenation, they're not so much resources, but they're crucial in terms of being able to manage the most important resource, which is time. So I invite you all to take whatever little minutes and seconds that you have to slow down, to pause, to really reconsider, especially this first week of the retrograde, where we're not super likely to notice a lot of what this retrograde cycle has in store. It's because Jupiter takes such a long time, 120 days of retrograde time versus Mercury, which is really quick. That's just 3 weeks. And so with a Mercury retrograde, it usually feels like someone smashed on the brakes, like a gas brake dip if you spend some time in the Bay, or if you, Oaklanders out there. And if you're not an Oaklander out there, then what I mean by that is with the Mercury retrograde, that we're just leaving right now. There's a feeling of sudden stopping, sudden reversal, and really having to figure out what just happened. Now, Mercury, as we speak, is getting through that last little bit of the shadow territory, and it's squaring Jupiter as it does this. And so there's really this possibilities could go two ways. One, we might really be just trying to escape into that little fantasy world that we concocted for ourselves, where, blind optimism was really leading the way, and we thought that we could do the impossible. And now we're presented with the reality that you could theoretically do the impossible. Anybody out there who's seen the documentary Free Solo knows that free soloing El Cap seemed like an absolute impossibility, and with enough time and diligence and methodical mastery of what that task entailed, it has been achieved. Alex Honnold free soloed El Capitan. But that doesn't mean that anyone can just go do it. It means that we are all invited to really focus in on what would that mean? What would it really take to do that? Now that I've dreamed the dream, now that I've thought about what that might entail, what does it actually entail to go do it? It's one thing to understand how to create the project plan, what resources we would need to complete something, but we really right now are being asked, invited, and presented by the universe with an opportunity to do the dirty work necessary to make it happen. Now the light's going down really quick, so I'll wrap this up with just one more thing. The point is not to believe one over the other, that it's impossible now that I've been faced with the difficulties. I failed by aiming too high. And it's also not the point to continue to believe that I can do the impossible. All I have to do is want it enough. The point is to find that middle place where we're actually working with the constraints presented by reality, and we're doing it in an optimistic way. And so what I mean by that is, if you realize I don't have enough money to go to all the classes that I want to, the point isn't to just say, well, that's it. I don't have enough money. No classes for me. The point is to be optimistic enough, to be bold enough, to be committed enough to the journey that you work with the constraint presented by reality and you find a way, create a way, or at least believe that it is possible to work through that obstacle, because that's ultimately the number one thing you need, is just belief that you can overcome the difficulties presented to you. And with that, I'm going to just give you the tangible takeaway. And this Astro challenge, because it's really a challenge that is for the next 4 months, but you could work it just for the next couple of days, couple of weeks, come back to it over the course of the next 4 months, however you want to do that. If you are excited about these challenges of the week, if there's something that you find a lot of value in and that you carry out yourself, I would love to hear how it goes for you. Do you adapt it? What are you doing with it? You can hit me up on any social media platform, or any of the ones that I use. You can hit me up on Twitter, on Instagram especially, or Facebook. Just use the hashtag Armchair Astrology or Tangible Takeaway. You can also @ me on Insta or Twitter. Let me know how things are going for you. I really do love to hear what you are all up to. And with that being said, the Astro challenge for the week is to create a list of resources in your immediate disposal, and then determine how, when, where to use them. So again, it's a really simple one this time. It's going to be a long Jupiter retrograde process, and you'll probably find that the answers to that challenge of the week, or that the resources that you put on that list, will change over the course of the next couple of months. Now, if you want to go deeper and more specific and really tune into your own personal synchronicity frequency, really see what's up with this Jupiter retrograde cycle for you, I can look at your birth chart and help you figure out exactly which areas of your life are activated by this Jupiter retrograde cycle, by the Jupiter transit through Sagittarius as a whole, and help you come up with a game plan that will utilize that energy to your best advantage, really tying in your personal strengths and seeing how you can use the Jupiter retrograde cycle to work on any areas that need a little bit of polish and finesse. If you're interested in a personal reading, use the link below for my booking website, and I would love to be of service to you. Thank you very much again for taking the time to check out this episode of Armchair Astrology. Again, my name is Ryver. I'm the intersectional astrologer and Reiki master of Psyche and Soul Astrology. Until next time, many blessings to you all, much love, and may Jupiter retrograde bring you unexpected success.